Thank you guys for watching the Animal One Guy YouTube videos. If you like this video, please leave a like and even comment below. And if you like all my content, please hit the subscribe button. And why not click the bell icon for notifications too? That way you can see all my videos. Give me the ball. Okay guys, you see this? Hopefully you figure out that is, and based on the title, my Pixie frog has prolapsed. Alright, so here he is now. He's soaking in his bath of sugar water. So I thought for sure yesterday, guys, I was going to be making a hard decision. And I was going to have to put down my Pixie frog, my male African bullfrog, John Wesley, because he went to the bathroom and the stool he had to push out was so big he prolapsed himself really bad. What we have here in the picture is, right, this is where his anal opening is, you know, his cloaca, his vent, whatever you want to call it. Really, it's cloaca for them, but so urine and stool come out the same hole, and you guys have seen his butt before, and he's a big frog. Here's his body. You know, this is a 1-to-1 scale, so he's a big boy. And he pushed some intestines out. And now, prolapsing in frogs, guys, is not super rare. It's actually can be kind of common. And normally there's a really easy fix. Normally you'll push out the intestine, and it will just be, you know, the bottom of the intestinal wall and the intestine itself. And you can do a really simple thing. You can, and it's with lizards too. This will happen sometimes in lizards, so it's good to know. You can soak them in a high concentrate sugar water solution. You can actually even apply raw sugar right to it itself. The sugar will draw out the excess moisture in the intestine, in that part of the intestine that's prolapsed, making it shrink. And then normally, I would say 90% of the time, the animal and everything will just suck it right back in. Okay, great. Sometimes you do need to help work it in. You can do it with a Q-tip, things like that. But you want to shrink it first. So what we had here, though, is completely different. And I'll put a picture up on the screen so it's a little bit higher quality, zoom in, of just the prolapse area. But if you look, it's like a bubble. So this is kind of, this is even worse than that could happen. He actually pushed through, and I'm not sure what organ it is, but he pushed out an organ, and that organ pushed out along the intestine. And then so you had the organ pushing out through the intestine. You can see it in there. It was a white organ. I could clearly see it, see how it was connected, see it in there. It was all in there. So this is like worst case scenario. All right. So right away, I started the sugar water solution. Now, I knew that this was going to be different in worst case scenario because we had an organ. Here it is right here in the picture. A ton of fluid in there, like a water balloon with an organ floating in it. And then the outside, his intestine. So I called 3 emergency exotic, say they take reptile vets. 2 of them didn't want to have anything to do with it because he's a frog. They don't do anything with frogs. And then one of them said, oh, you know, we might be able to do it, but, you know, we're at 100% capacity, and so we are not going to try to do anything. That just meant they had no idea what to do, and they didn't want to say it. Very unprofessional. One of them said, oh yeah, text us pictures. You know, we've never dealt with a prolapse in a frog, but we've dealt with prolapses in lizards. Again, much more common. You know, send the doctor some pictures and we could see. Because prolapsing in Pac-Man frogs, you know, have happened, and they've put the prolapse back. And sometimes they have to put 1 or 2 stitches to get everything to calm down. So I actually saw a video on YouTube of the baby Pac-Man frog that had to go and get 2 little stitches, and they even showed the girl how to remove the stitches after a while to let the frog start pooping again. So no one wanted to touch this. The emergency exotic vets said F you to me, basically. But no, one of them even said, we'll just put him down to make him comfortable. And I'm like, well, we're going to at least try. And by we, I mean me. And by me, I mean me and my mother, who is a nurse. She's a registered nurse. So I told her to come over. I said, bring a glove and bring some Vaseline. So you guys can see where this is going. Now, I wanted to film. There was no way for us to film. He was moving too much. There was only 2 of us. She was bracing the frog. Like so. Here's the frog. She kind of had him like this. That way she wouldn't be putting pressure on him. It's kind of like a hole, but that way he couldn't jump forward. Because, it was definitely painful. He was making some noises, but you have to try. So, what made this so difficult, other than there was an organ? It was also full of that fluid, because they'll tell you, hey, take a Q-tip and kind of push it in. A Q-tip would puncture this, and I'm going to explain what the procedure was and why it was so difficult in the anatomy of a frog. Now, thankfully, I even have that one video where I did an autopsy on a baby Pixie frog that had died. But here's the problem. Obviously, this is, and you've seen his butt before, but so right here, this area is like the bottom, the back of his skin, where, I'd say those are his butt cheeks, etc. The actual opening, like the sphincter, the opening is about here. Let me zoom out a little bit. So this is just skin, that's in here. The actual opening to get inside the frog's abdomen is in here. This is nothing. So in here was just intestine. That's why this was so full of fluid. This was in here, and he had that thing sealed closed. So I had to probe him. So what did we do? I Vaselined the pinky finger, and the pinky could not fit. It was very tight here. So I Vaselined a Q-tip, slid it. Okay, because the turd that came out was like this. Not even kidding you. It was massive. So I knew that I could get in there. But it was huge. It was absolutely ginormous. I have no idea how it got out of him. Just massive. So, especially knowing what I do, because I felt inside, and I learned a lot from this. So I slid a Q-tip in and kind of stretched the skin off of the prolapse a little bit. Just enough. That way I could get an opening to get my finger in. And my entire pinky finger was inside the frog's butt. That's the devotion to your reptile. So he had passed a huge stool. I saw this floating around in the water. Now I've got the entirety of my pinky up to here inside. And it's about here. And I'm just hitting the opening. It's like a brick wall. Like he's got it clenched shut. So what do we do now? I try moving my finger around. I can't get it open. So I have the brilliant idea to lube up another Q-tip, and I slide it in along my finger. So I know I'm not going to puncture anything. I know I'm not going to rupture anything because it's going along my finger, and my finger is all the way to the opening. So I know it's fine if I go there. I get to the opening, and since the Q-tip is much smaller, it's actually able to kind of go into the opening, which gets him to open that. And then I was able to put my finger just a touch inside of that opening where he couldn't close it. Now, he clamped down on this opening so hard, for a second I thought it was going to take my finger off. There was so much pressure on the tip of my finger, and that was him just squeezing his butthole closed. And I thought it was going to snap this right off. Then, while my finger was in there, somehow, this is obviously stimulation because I was moving it around. I was trying to get everything open. I was trying to feel where stuff is gently. I knew I was inside his intestinal tract. He pushed out another giant turd. I felt it coming. I took my finger out and boom, another huge turd came out. So, okay. So then we get back in. Q-tip stretches open the opening just a little bit. The finger's able to slide in covered in Vaseline. I know that this is the intestine, but really it's an organ that's pushed out, so it's not just his intestine, and it's filled with fluid. When I get in there with the Q-tip again this time, I kind of pull them apart to stretch them, and this was a great part. When I did that, and there was no longer a turd here too, so I stretched it open with no turd in the way. All of the fluid from this whoosh, sucked back in, which was so good, because then this was a lot smaller. Now we just had that intestine, whatever it was, kind of in like would feel like an empty plastic bag instead of filled with water. Much more manageable, and gave me the confidence that I'd be able to move this back in without puncturing it, since it wasn't full fluid. Okay, so I let him rest a little bit, a couple minutes, because now his opening wasn't stretched to the maximum and everything, and there was just so much more room not having all that fluid in that intestine. So once again, Q-tip opens, I go in to the closing, I go in with the Q-tip along the finger. Now, I kind of bend the Q-tip, kind of like contort it to the side, because I need to hold the sphincter open, but the sphincter is way in here. I need to hold the sphincter open, slid this finger out, sphincter still open, everything stretched, and just lined everything up, because you can see here the organ is kind of folded on itself. I was able to then straighten it out, lined it up, and just fed it in. I got it as much in as possible. It was about 3/4 of the way in. I held it with my one finger, Q-tip still in, held it with my thumb, my mom's holding the head, slid this finger out, lined up the rest on the front of the finger, and in it went. In until my finger hit the opening. My finger couldn't pass this, even opened. I couldn't hold it open enough. Took the finger out, took the Q-tip out, got another Q-tip, and went back in, went around the sides. I didn't feel anything all the way up to the opening. This, to me, feels like this entire thing was put back in here. And the nice thing is, once it's back in here, it will settle. Everything will settle to where it needs to go, which is really important. So this was a horrible, horrible emergency prolapse procedure where every vet wrote me off that it was impossible. And keep in mind, at a vet, they might have been able to sedate him a little bit. He wasn't sedated. He was pissed, and he's all muscle. They may have had a female vet tech that maybe had smaller, fingers than I do. They could be prepared for this. No, they told me, like I said, to go shove it. Beyond mad. So here's John Wesley. It's midday now, after the restuffing of the organs. Seems to be okay. What is the follow-up care going to be? So this is the rough part. Luckily, like I said, he took that big number 2, and then during the probing he took another number 2. So the first thing that's going to happen is I'm not going to feed this guy for at least 7 to 10 days. I want, there might be some swelling, my finger was in there, some agitation. I'm going to want everything to settle down inside of him. The other nice thing is him doing that other stool is I know he's completely emptied out on the inside now. So he shouldn't have an urge to go to the bathroom. There should be nothing in there. Let's let everything calm down. He may die, guys. We may have damaged him internally. I don't know. I can't even get an x-ray on him. So they're like, 2 weeks out for an x-ray. Well, great. So he's just going to sit here anyways. So I'm not going to feed him. I'm not even going to take him out. I'm not going to mess with him. I'm not even going to soak him. I'm just going to make sure his enclosure stays misted, stays humid, and doesn't dry out. And it's going to be hopefully okay. Now, could we avoid this? We're going to have to feed him less in between him going to the bathroom. He must have just held and held and held and then finally pushed it out. So right now, it's been about 24 hours and he's still alive. So hopefully you guys send him good wishes. Like I said, it was a very emotional weekend because I thought for sure I'm going to be putting one of my pets down, and it wasn't a good feeling. Anyways, take care, everybody.
Thank you guys for supporting my reptile rescue family.